It used to be that calling a film a turkey was an insult. Nowadays, there's actually an audience for some of the worst movies ever made.
Baby, you are gonna go broke showing turkeys like these.
Now we're talking turkey.
Gobble, gobble, motherfucker.
It's turkey time. Gobble, gobble.
Welcome, everybody, to another episode of Let's Talk Turkeys. I'm Movie Miss, and I'm flying solo this week without my co-host, but I am being joined by a special guest. The movie we're talking this week is 1989, The Punisher.
If society won't punish the guilty, he will.
You see this board here? Every time he kills somebody, I put a red pin in it. So far, the only thing that I've got to show for it is these little calling cards here and a whole bunch of these.
Now let me tell you something about this Punisher. If he ever shows up within 1,000 yards of me, he'll find out what the word punished really means. He defends the innocent. But if you're guilty, he gives no warning and shows no mercy.
What the hell is this?
Trouble. Dolph Lundgren. Louis Gossett Jr.
Mr. P, happy hunting.
The Punisher.
And my special guest is a comic book collector and fan, as well as a superhero fan. So I thought this was a great movie to have him on. Welcome to the podcast, Mike.
Thank you for having me. If you want a little background on me, I've been collecting comics since I was 9 years old. So I'm about 45 years in on that, sadly. And I, watch all of the movies as they come out, some better than others.
That's true. So that leads me perfectly into why we're discussing this movie today. It is a turkey across the board. Rotten Tomato critic score of 28% and an audience score of 33%. However, I will say this is a guilty pleasure movie of mine. It has been ever since it came out. I think it has to do with the Rocky IV Dolph Lundgren, just anything I could find him in and just watch it over and over. Do you remember the first time that you saw this movie?
I saw this in a movie theater in Portland, Oregon called The Village, which has since been demolished. They would show double features for $1.
Really?
So I would go there with some friends and we would watch things like The Punisher and Highlander and a lot of late 80s, early 90s movies we saw there for next to nothing, which is what we had to spend.
Well, before we dive any further into the movie, if you wouldn't mind, I'm not real familiar with comics and storylines of characters in general, but especially not the Punisher. Do you want to throw in maybe your 2 cents so that some of our listeners who maybe aren't familiar with the Punisher either can have a bit of backstory on the character?
Okay, and I'll try and be brief so as not to bore non-comic book fans, but the Punisher was created essentially as a foil for Spider-Man in 1974 by a guy named Jerry Conway and an artist named Ross Andrew. These guys created a bunch of characters, not necessarily together. Most notably, Jerry Conway created Firestorm, who appears in the Flash TV series, and a character called Ms. Marvel, who they later changed to Captain Marvel, who had a movie and is in the Avengers. And Ross Andrew created some characters for DC called the Metal Men, which were wildly popular and still being printed today. Yeah, so the Punisher was part of a plot line where another villain hires him to kill Spider-Man. So there's a famous cover of the Punisher with his rifle and Spider-Man's in the crosshairs. And it's like, ooh, he's a bad guy because he actually shoots people in the comic books, which is something that didn't really happen in the 70s.
Was that the first appearance of Punisher then, just as a hired villain for hire?
Yes.
That's fascinating.
Yeah, he was a bad guy. Stan Lee will try to take credit for him, of course, because he was the publisher at the time, but
sure,
really not so much.
So if you don't mind, then what is Frank Castle's deal? Because all the depictions in all the movies show him as rogue cop because he lost his family due to a bad guy killing them somehow. Is that basically what happens in the comics too?
Yeah, yes and no.
Okay, give me the
Essentially,
brief on the.
well, they have the part about the family being murdered by the mob. Sometimes they're caught in a crossfire. Sometimes they're going to blow him up because he's a policeman. Although in the comic books, he actually wasn't. He was just enjoying a day in Central Park, having lunch with his family. They witness a mob killing, and then everyone gets slaughtered except for Frank, who survives. So really, no ties to the police, just the military. He, of course, like all good heroes, is ex-military at the time, a Vietnam vet, and highly skilled sniper and hand-to-hand combatant.
What about a physical similarity? I'm just curious. Who has been the closest iteration, do you think, to the comics?
He's always been drawn as a large man, dark hair, because he's of Italian descent. His name in the comic books is Frank Castle, which was later revealed to have originally been Frank Castiglione. He shortened it up for him. I thought the best iteration of him, Dolph Lundgren, kind of fits the bill with the shoe polish and the hair. Thomas Jane was okay. The guy I always thought should have played him at the time when they were started making movies was it was a guy named Ken Wall, who was in a series called Wise Guy. Later, as he aged, they used a guy named Ray Stevenson, who I thought fit the bill really well. And
wasn't he in Warzone?
Punisher Warzone, which I think is the best of the 3 Punisher movies and the most true to the comics.
The film version that we're talking about today, like I said, was 1989, starring Dolph Lundgren, and it was directed by Mark Goldblatt, who was a second unit director on RoboCop before this in 87. It was filmed almost entirely in Australia, had a budget of $9 million. And in my Googling, I found out that it had a limited theatrical release overseas because they were afraid of the movie. They didn't think it was going to do well. They weren't happy with it, whoever had the distribution rights. So there's no box office numbers anywhere that I could find, even for US, nothing. So like I said, it stars Dolph Lundgren as Frank Castle, AKA The Punisher, Lou Gossett Jr., Jaron Crabe, I guess.
I was saying Jerome Crab, maybe.
Jerome
but
Crab. Well, in any event, he's amazing and I love him and stuff. He always plays a villain. And then Kim Miori and Nancy Everhard as the top billed cast. The plot from IMDb: when Frank Castle's family is murdered by criminals, he wages war on crime as a vigilante assassin known only as the Punisher. So before we jump into the plot, walking through the plot, I looked up a couple of things on the Punisher and got some fun facts here. So tell me if you knew these or not.
Well, let's go. I love Punisher fun facts.
So apparently, Dolph was European and Australian heavyweight full contact karate champion. He knew his stuff. He'd been a fighter. He'd gotten medals or belts or whatever for being really good at it. And for the movie, that's why he got cast. They wanted the fight scenes to be as realistic as possible.
So Paul Hogan wasn't available.
Well, that would be, bringing a knife to a fist fight. I don't know how fun that would be.
Yeah, but he does carry a really big knife.
A knife. So they had Dolph drop down to his 220-pound fighting weight and train, and that's why he got the role. The fight scenes were not choreographed. They hired people who didn't speak English, but they knew what they were doing. They were fighters in their own right. And he basically gave them instructions via a translator. You're here, Dolph is here, fight for 3 minutes. And that was all the instruction they got. There was no choreographing.
This sounds like something David Carradine would have done on Kung Fu, where he was notorious for injuring all of his stuntmen.
Oh, really?
Apparently he knew Kung Fu kind of, but didn't really know how to pull a punch.
Well, I thought that was fascinating. So watching the movie a second time after learning that fact, you can tell nothing's choreographed. And then the last bit of info I got was producer Robert Kamen acquired the film rights for The Punisher. He also was the creator of The Karate Kid. So that's why he decided to combine the two and make it a mesh.
That explains all the ninjas.
Yes, that is why. Is there anything you wanted to add before we dive into the plot?
I say, let's go. I'm ready for Punisher plot.
Our movie opens with ominous music over some colorized stills of different characters, I'm guessing, as the opening credits roll, and it's comic vibe.
I don't know necessarily it was comic vibe. I got the feel that the opening credits kind of looked like a made-for-TV movie circa about 1978.
Oh no. Mixed with like Sin City because it had like the blood and the red and the blue.
Yeah, well, you could immediately tell this is not a high budget motion picture.
Not at all.
Not that I'm holding that against it. Even though it has a low budget, there's a high body count. So
Amen to that.
That makes up for it.
The movie begins with a basic exposition dump by a TV reporter. We learn very quickly a crime family member who is probably responsible for the death of Frank Castle's family was acquitted of all charges.
Oh, there's no probably. He's clearly responsible. You get one look at this guy and you know he's a bad guy.
Well, when he opens his mouth, it's confirmed.
Yeah, I thought he looked like a poor man's Jerry Orbach.
Yes.
He was actually the mob guy is Dino Moretti, and he's played by an actor named Brian Marshall.
Yeah, he gave me all the mob guy cliches, like just looking at him. So we learn he was acquitted of all charges, and we also learn a shadowy figure known as the Punisher has killed about 125 people associated with organized crime over the last 5 years. So that is our quick, this is what's going on, which I appreciate. Get right to the point. So Mr. Moretti, when he's outside the courthouse, he tells a reporter he's not afraid of the Punisher. You should be.
Right, this is a guy that just he's essentially on the steps of the courthouse taking a victory lap and rubbing it in the Punisher's face. So you know that's not going to go well for him.
Well, as soon as he opened his mouth, I didn't really pay attention to what he had to say. I had to rewind it because I expected him to go, "It's me, Mario." Like as soon as he started talking.
Okay, so since you mentioned that, I have written in big letters in my notes, Italian stereotypes abound. It's just a note for the entire movie in general.
It's accurate. Moretti arrives home and tells his guys with guns to go check the house as the henchmen are searching the house. One of them cocks his gun and slowly goes into a room with crazy Enter the Dragon mirrors. What?
Again, I have the
What
same
movie?
note. This set stolen from Enter the Dragon.
Yeah, I was like, what movie is this again? Kung Fu and mirrors. What possible reason does a mobster have that in his house? Just
He spends a lot of money on his suits and he wants to make sure they look good at every angle.
Well, this henchman is quickly dispatched when a boot knife comes down through the ceiling vent and stabs him right in the neck. It's so fast, but very cool.
The Punisher has a lot of kills in this movie. The total for the movie is 96. The Punisher has 54 of them, Frank Castle. So
that we see, right?
Yes. I actually tried keeping track, making little hash marks every time I saw one. I couldn't keep up. I was getting writer's cramp. But
awesome.
A lot of them, he uses a lot of knives and things other than guns in this movie, which was kind of odd for the Punisher, but it still worked for me. As long as he got the job done.
So we cut to another poor fella who gets kicked over a stair railing and falls to his death. Another guy runs over to him and he's immediately lassoed from above with a rope and pulled up like a noose and hung. And then Mr. Moretti comes in and he sees his dead guys and he gets ambushed. So we cut to the reporters outside and they hear gunshots and they all run up to the house. And all of a sudden the house explodes. All the windows just explode. And Moretti comes out on the porch and collapses. We see a knife in his back with a skull handle. So I'm guessing that's the Punisher signature knife at this point.
That's his calling card for this movie, which I was wondering what the knife budget is, because he is apparently just leaves them willy-nilly everywhere.
Probably a good million on the knives. He does have a lot of them. Is that in the comics, by the way? The whole Punisher knife thing?
Originally, he had the one in his boot, which you can see in his first few appearances, but he mostly dropped those for more conventional weapons. Lots of guns for Punisher.
So Lundgren appears in the doorway. He's dressed all in black. He's got black hair, which no bueno, no thank you.
The black hair kind of threw me off a little. It's like, how much shoe polish did they put in there?
Is he dark haired in the comics?
He is. I mean, obviously Dolph Lundgren is not, but they went a little overboard. I think it looks a little odd.
It does. And in some angles, when he turns his head, I kind of felt like he looked like a young Elvis because of his very chiseled features. When he turned his head and black hair, it just reminded me of Elvis so much. But I don't like it on him. I like him blonde.
I expected to see him sweating and you would just see it kind of running off of him, but fortunately that didn't happen.
Well, you know what I thought was weird? Right out the gate, he's standing in the doorway and one of the reporters goes, "Look, it's the Punisher." Bitch, how do you know who that is?
Well,
because he disappears immediately back into the house.
The reporters immediately recognize him as the Punisher and they can't connect the dots that, oh, the Punisher's Frank Castle. It's not like he's wearing a disguise.
That's true. He's not Batman.
He doesn't even have Superman glasses on to throw him off.
So the house then proceeds to completely explode as Lundgren disappears into it.
And by explode, it not just explode, it goes up like the White House in Independence Day after the flying saucer nails it.
It really does.
There's nothing but wood pulp and splinters left.
So that's where the budget went. The kung fu experts, the knife budget, and explosions.
C4 is not cheap.
So we fade into an underground tunnel system where the Punisher is living. We get a quick glimpse of a naked Lundgren crouched down on the floor. Didn't hate that.
I could have done without it.
I'm not mad at it. And we get his voiceover. And I'm guessing this is something from the comics. He says, "Come on, God, answer me. For years, I'm asking you why. Why are the innocent dead and the guilty alive? Where is justice? Where is punishment? Or have you already answered? Have you already said to the world, here is justice, here is punishment, here in me?" Of course, he says it very melodramatic and slowly. Then we cut to a flashback of Frank's wife and two small children in a car in the driveway as it explodes. Frank breaks the window, but it's too late. The car still explodes. Like he couldn't undo her seatbelt and get her out. I kind of call bullshit on that, but whatever. They had to kill his family, right?
Well, he has to have impetus to go after these guys. You know, it's like Uncle Ben dying for Spider-Man. If you take that away, you don't have the Punisher at all.
Fair enough. Meanwhile, back at Mr. Moretti's, it's dark now and there's rubble everywhere. Reporters are harassing Lieutenant Berkowitz, Lou Gossett Jr., who is the head of the Punisher Task Force, ? I guess.
There is in the comics a Punisher Task Force. In Punisher Warzone, it's famously headed by a character called Detective Soap, who has actually a long run in the Punisher comics.
Well, we learn here that Frank Castle is presumed to be dead in that explosion that killed his family, but the lieutenant thinks that he's alive and he is the Punisher. The mayor says that the other cops don't believe that theory. So he's basically the lone man right now searching for Frank Castle. He gets approached by a female detective. Her name is Sam Leary, Detective Sam. She says she wants to be his partner because she also thinks Frank Castle is the Punisher. We don't know how she came to that conclusion. We're just like, here's female character. Here you go.
Because she looked at his face and then looked at Frank Castle's face and said, hey, look, it's the same guy.
Also, well, that'd be end of movie, roll credits.
Am I wrong? But were her wardrobe and haircut borrowed from Amanda Beers from Married with Children?
But I will say, Detective Sam, played by Nancy Everhard, I've seen her in a few things, and one of them was, I believe, Deep Star 6, I want to say, in the mid-'80s, or was it Leviathan?
I think you're right. It was Deep Star 6. That was the only thing that I saw in her bio that I recognized.
So the head of the Franco crime family arrives back in the U.S. and tells reporters at the airport he doesn't believe the Punisher is real. Famous last words, right?
Now, this is the new head of the crime family.
Right.
Who is been away at college, I'm guessing, a la Michael Corleone.
He tells his right-hand man that he has a shit ton of drugs coming in, and he is not afraid of the Punisher. We cut to Frank meeting his informant in an alleyway after luring him around the corner with a bottle of like wild turkey or something on a little remote control
Wild turkey
truck.
on a remote control car, which is the best way to drink wild turkey from my understanding.
That was amazing. He's just following it around the corner like, come to Papa.
This is like Popeye luring Wimpy with the hamburger.
You're right. So he tells the Punisher that his information tells him the drugs are coming in that night down at the pier. So we cut to later at the pier. All the crime guys are doing crime stuff. And my favorite line is when one of the guys radios another guy and he says, "Bad kidneys, I gotta pee," or something like that. What? So I gotta go to the bathroom because I have bad kidneys. I'll be right back.
You need both hands. You're going to be away from the radio for a minute is all.
So
If we go back
silly.
to the drugs for a minute, the guy says
Sure.
I have $500 million of cocaine. Is it cocaine or heroin?
I thought cocaine, but
I think
didn't like
cocaine. So he said 600 kilos. So I'm just doing the math. It's $834,000 a kilo.
Sweet Jesus. Well, everyone knows I don't do math, so I'm glad you did that. That's crazy.
Yeah, those are $1989.
I was going to say, did you adjust it?
So no, it's not adjusted for inflation.
So Frank shows up and he makes quick work of dispatching some of the henchmen on those docks. A boat gets attacked by Asian assassins.
It's Night of a Million Billion Ninjas.
Hey, that's a good title. We should do that.
Sorry, I already lifted that from the tick.
Oh, dang it. So Frank watches the wetsuit ninjas take out the mob guys, and then they shoot at him.
The on the wetsuit ninjas.
Yeah.
I do have a note here. Wetsuit ninja equals boobs. There's just one particular wetsuit ninja who's clearly a woman, and they want you to know it. And they do very effectively.
I picked up on that too. I'm like, well, the one with the tits is right in front, so can't miss her.
I'm sorry. My actual note says Ninja Frogman equals boobs.
Well, it'd be a frog woman.
Fair enough.
So he winds up shooting everybody and he runs after a van that's getting away. He winds up with a knife to his own chest from the female wetsuit ninja, and he falls into the water. Next day, Lieutenant and Detective Sam are at the docks where they find another skull handle knife in one of the bodies.
Knife budget.
Frank makes it back to his sewer lair. I'm waiting for him to bump into Ramon the alligator at any turn.
See, I was waiting for him to bump into Whistler and Blade.
So he cauterizes his knife wound, which I know it's not real, but I was like, eh. We cut to Lady Tanaka, the female head of the Yakuza, showing up to Franco's place. She proceeds to tell him she's responsible for the attack at the docks and his empire is weak and they want 75% of his business and they have no choice but to comply. Bitch needs to be running the world. That shit, was awesome.
At first, I thought Lady Tanaka was a breath spray for women before they introduced her. Again, I know I had Italian stereotypes abound. I have also written down Japanese stereotypes abound.
It's true, but I feel like that one works a little bit better. So she leaves, and Franco says they would rather go to war than, comply with her demands. And Frank Castle overhears this meeting in the room with his stereo speaker on the wall of his sewer bunker.
He has the entire place bugged.
What? This is like a speaker out of an old Datsun. Like, what? How does that even work? How does he wire that fucker?
He can wire C4 explosives. You think he can't set up a stereo?
He needs to come set up my sound system because that was crazy. So back at the police station, Detective Sam uses her computer.
Okay, the computer. This is 1989. This computer is as big as the entire desk, and it works better than Deep Blue or Watson, as all movie computers do.
I was going to say, because Berkowitz is like blown away that she has used this computer to figure shit out. It's like my dad trying to do something with technology. You know, he was like so impressed. She was able to narrow down where the Punisher would live using this computer. And they finally figure out he's probably not in the city. He's probably under the city. And then we cut to Frank on his motorcycle zipping through his underground tunnels.
How big are these sewer tunnels?
I know. I was thinking that too.
He's able to ride them. He can ride the motorcycle straight through the sewer tunnel, right down Ramon's throat.
Yes. Then we cut to a montage of various crime family children being abducted quickly by the Yakuza. Underground, Frank meets with his informant again, his little drunkie buddy, who's so hilarious in this movie.
His pal's name is Shake.
Shake?
In the movie. Yes. I'm assuming it's because of his love of the Shamrock Shake from McDonald's.
I think it's because he's got the J's from too much alcohol.
Yeah, possibly. That's probably a better explanation.
He's always like saying his lines like he's in a Shakespearean play. Makes me laugh.
Are you saying he's too good for this movie?
Everybody was too good for this movie. The informant tells Frank that all the children are being abducted. Frank basically says, well, not my problem. So sorry.
It's another one of my notes. How does this bum know everything?
He's got his ear to the ground because he's laying down there from being drunk.
The drunken actor community that has all the scuttlebutt, apparently.
So I like, though, that Frank says, not my problem. So sorry, folks. I only punish the guilty. So I think kidnapping children would make you guilty of something, right? Kidnapping, maybe?
Well, depends on the kids.
But at this point, too, I also did like a time check. I paused it and I was like, you know, this movie is taking a while to get going as far as feeling like a superhero-ish type of movie. It feels like a true crime or something real gritty. It didn't feel comic booky to me at all.
Yeah, it does come off a little more like a made-for-TV police procedural almost.
Yeah, that's the vibe I got. I mean, I still love it. I mean, don't get me wrong, but
to be fair, the Punisher is, you know, he's billed as a superhero, but it's a guy with no superpowers. He's just a guy that knows how to. Well, so's
Batman. Come on, we're not going to have this argument.
Well, he doesn't have super high. He has realistic equipment. He doesn't have a Punisher mobile.
Wouldn't that be awesome with like a skull piece on the front?
I'm sure someone has that somewhere.
So Franco and the crime family bosses all meet to figure out a plan against the Yakuza and Lady Tanaka. Cut to cash being delivered to Lady Tanaka for the children. Slave trade, I think they say. That's a really heavy theme to have in this movie. She's going to sell them into slavery. She has no intention of giving them back. Is that right?
That is correct. Yeah.
Okay. Then we cut to what appears to be a secret underground casino and bar with all manner of shady characters. I would totally go to this place.
Yeah, I had it as underground casino, strip club, opium den.
All of the above. On the roof of this place, Frank, weapons locked and loaded, jumps down through the glass ceiling and lands on a table, I think a roulette table, and he just gets attacked by everybody that all these people, and he just easily dispatches them. He grabs a guy and tells him, the guy's Asian, so I'm guessing Frank is assuming he's part of the Yakuza, because he tells him, go tell your boss, every day the children are missing, it's going to cost you money. And then he just proceeds to wildly shoot the place up, which I loved.
Right.
But, innocent people.
The sad part is you're correct. That guy worked for Lehman Brothers. So he went and told his boss and he had no idea what he was talking about.
Don't stereotype. But I was like, he's shooting the place up and he's so worried about only punishing the guilty. What about all the innocent like women and shit that are there?
Well, to be fair, I watched the scene closely. I only counted 2 actual casualties in this segment. He was really there just to destroy all of their equipment and cut into their revenue.
I love the close-up and where they do the slow-mo and he's just like, whoa, boom, 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 like slow-mo blowing the place up. I was like, yeah, son, get it. So the lieutenant and the detective show up later. They find out the kids are missing, a day late and a dollar short. And of course, Punisher is the suspect. Punisher must have done this, they say. But the lieutenant says, I don't think so. That's not what Frank Castle
because a
would
guy
do.
whose MO is to kill mafia members and street thugs all of a sudden goes to kidnapping small children. That makes perfect sense.
Cut to the next day. Frank's informant takes him to a closed Coney Island amusement park.
Yeah,
I wonder if they really
I
filmed
have a
that
note.
there.
They get there on Frank's motorcycle,
Right?
and the Shake has to ride on the back, and it's just I think it's always wrong for two men to be on one motorcycle. Just a personal thing.
Yeah, they seem to be enjoying that. So apparently this is where the kids are being held. He goes into a building and Frank is immediately under fire from the sliding ninjas. I love this scene. All these ninja guys come sliding down this wall of slides on their knees, just blasting away. Frank ends up captured though, after he puts up a really good fight with these guys.
Yeah, because once again, despite overwhelming forces, they fail to actually shoot the Punisher.
Yes, I noticed that. They will just blast like a full load at him, and then he'll lean around the corner and go pow pow and hit two people. How is that possible?
It's possible because movies.
Yes. So then we fade into Frank now after he's been captured, waking up chained to what looks like a table in Lady Tanaka's torture chamber.
This is the twin tables, as Shake is right next to him.
Yeah, I thought that was weird that he's next to him, tied up, covered up, no gag in his mouth. But yet he doesn't speak for the entire scene.
Also, where's Frank's shirt?
Me? Oh, well, you don't need a shirt when you're chained to a table like that.
Shake is fully clothed.
Yeah, but he doesn't look like the Punisher. He can keep his clothes on, Mr. Shaky J.
Okay, I want to talk about the torture master in this scene.
Yes.
Okay, first of all, I'm happy they put a lab coat and a stethoscope on the guy, so you know he's an evil doctor.
Yes.
Because you don't go to 6 years of evil medical school to be called sir. Also, he's wearing giant red high heels.
Well, he's working hard, but he likes to play hard. See, when he's done here torturing Frank, he's got somewhere to be where he needs to look fabulous.
I was assuming it was a screening of Rocky Horror Picture Show.
So Frank is strung up on a torture rack of some kind, and Lady Tanaka is so irritated with him because he won't give up any information. She finally says, forget it, you take over, kill him or whatever, because he's not cooperating. And he tells the evil doctor with the red pumps, handle this guy. And she leaves.
When you tell a guy in red pumps, handle this guy, that can have a lot of meanings. Most of which don't belong in this movie.
During that entire exchange between them, Frank has been busy secretly using his hand to undo the straps and with the screw on the table, so he's able to get one of his hands loose. They had to do it because something has to happen here for Frank to get loose. But I just love how in all these movies, when people get tied up, the restraints are always so easy to get out of. Like I said, I know they have to do something, but come on. How old are these tables that these screws are this loose?
Well,
have they not tortured anybody in a while?
Maybe they normally drug the people before they strap them down.
So Frank frees himself and he shoots the lone henchman that's there with his own gun.
Let me stop you for a second.
Yeah.
Frank does get out. He gets a weapon from the guy and he shoots the guy in the balls. I would just like to point that out.
Well, that would kill you, right?
Right in the balls. Not necessarily.
Unless the evil doctor can fix you.
I was just thinking it was just kind of egregious that he would do that.
So he shoots that guy, and then the evil doctor, who's left alone, I guess he uncovers Shake. Frank undoes his straps too. And then they put evil doctor on the table and strap him up. And that's where you get to see the red pumps. You don't know he has those red shoes on the whole time he's being evil doctor.
I'm pretty sure he enjoys being strapped to the table, though.
Oh, he likes that freaky stuff. But you know what? You do you, boo-boo. If he wants to wear those shoes, more power to him. But they strap him to the table, and then Frank says some cheesy Schwarzenegger type line to him as they're leaving, like, don't go anywhere, or something like that, like, because he's strapped to the table. It's so bad. So in the next scene, the lieutenant and Detective Sam are wandering through these underground tunnels because her supercomputer told her that's probably where Frank would be. So as they're wandering through the tunnels, We get a little bit of backstory of the lieutenant and Frank and how they used to be partners, and how the lieutenant feels like Frank basically helped him kick his alcohol problem and get his life on track. But it's real brief and it's not super in depth, but you just get the feeling that he gives a shit. And he's such a good actor. He elevates this movie, I think.
Apparently, I was reading on the interwebs that there's about 15 more minutes of this movie that they filmed that was more of the backstory for Jake and Frank.
That makes sense.
That was cut out of the movie. So you just kind of get a little taste of that there.
So then we cut to a restaurant meeting where Lady Tanaka proceeds to kill the mob family heads, all but Johnny Franco, who doesn't show up. And then in the next scene, Frank steals a city bus. Okay. Is his bike in the shop?
This is so clear. I was looking at the bus carefully. It's so clearly an Australian bus. I understand everything is in English, but you just look at it and you know something's off. It's like, looks almost European, but not.
He takes it to the location where the kids are being held. And that's when I went, oh, that's why he's got a bus. Okay. He loads all of the kids except for 2 that he can't find. He goes back in for them, and a shit ton of gunfire, of course, by all the bad guys. And Frank is not hit.
Again, Yakuza and ninjas, just poor shots.
The henchmen also unload an unreal amount of gunfire on that bus, which I guess is made out of adamantium or something, because the bus is not damaged except for the windshield.
Well, the windshield is damaged because one of the ninja guys actually flies through it.
Oh, that happens, yeah.
And rolls to the back of the bus, gets right back up, and goes on the attack.
As you do if you're a ninja.
I have that in my notes as Who Dat Ninja.
Top of the class, I would imagine. So when Frank gets away, though, he realizes he has to leave little Tommy Franco behind because he can't find him. So yeah, they take off. The villains set up a roadblock to ambush and unload against the oncoming bus. And again, like you said, the bus windshield shatters and a ninja goes flying through, which I just laughed and laughed. That was so good. I had to watch it like 3 times because I like when people fall down. Like I like that show Wipeout. So anything crazy like this with physical stuff, I was like, watch him fly through that motherfucking bus. I had to watch it like 3 times.
Yeah, and he does the perfect little tumble and then just pops right up in the back of the bus.
Shit, yeah. So Frank drives the bus, even though he's in pursuit from the villains, up to a police roadblock. He pulls over and hands over all of the children to the cops, and then he himself gets taken into custody. At the jail, the lieutenant goes to see Frank. He basically tells Frank, I've been looking for you for 5 years, and tells him he's going to be brought up on charges for the 125 murders that we heard about in the opening scene of the film. But my question to you is, sure, there were the 125 confirmed, okay? He's killed more since then. In the last 48 hours or whatever.
Right. He's killed like 35 more people.
Yeah. Shouldn't that be added on to the 125?
Well, I'm sure they'll get to that. But first, they have to have a few words between them in the prison cell. And then for some reason, these 2 grown men get in a slap fight.
So he won't talk to him, though. Yeah, Frank won't give him anything. He basically just says the guilty need to be brought to justice. So I don't know. Detective Sam gets in the transport the next day with Frank. So she's alone in the back with him in this truck. They're transporting him to wherever because he's being brought up on these charges. And she lays into him. I was like, bitch, you're not his mother, his sister. Like, what are you doing?
Right. She just met the lieutenant like 2 days ago.
Yeah. And she's laying into Frank on his behalf.
And yeah, completely understands their relationship.
Well, what I love is he takes that for about 32 seconds and then he decides he's had enough and he just grabs her. He tells her, call the lieutenant. So then we cut to Frank's transit being ambushed by Franco's people. I swear to God, Frank and Franco. Doesn't that sound like a sitcom?
I've just been calling them Goombas.
I don't know. I think there's a sitcom out there with the title Frank and Franco. I like it. But he gets taken by Franco's people, Frank does. So then back at Franco's place, Frank is chained up quite heavily into a wheelchair. Okay. And Franco tells him, that he can't take back what happened to Frank Castle's family, but he'll give him anything he wants if he will go get his son, little Tommy, back. To which Frank rightly says, fuck you.
That seems fair.
I was like, yes, tell him. So then, of course, Franco's got to show him he's got the Lieutenant Berkowitz, and he says, I'll kill him unless you do what I want. So what is Heart of Gold Frank Castle to do?
You get up and you go back to killing. It's what you do anyway.
Well, Frank agrees to help, but he tells Franco he's going to kill him after the job is done. I love a threat like that in a movie. It's good stuff because then the whole time.
Very 48 hours of him. We ain't buddies, we ain't partners, and we ain't friends.
So then we cut to Frank and his little drunk buddy, Shake, and Franco, the three of them, underground at the place where Tommy's being held, I guess.
Can I talk just a second about Frank, the Goombas? His attire for the raid is an acid-washed jean jacket. It's very 1980s. It just stood out to me. It's like, really? That's what you wear?
Agreed. Although, what would you have preferred, for him to smear some of that shoe polish from Frank's hair onto his face? Like you're going to stand out.
I mean, he does have the good sense to wear a bulletproof vest, which will prove to come in handy.
Yes. So Frank tells his little buddy to stay down here, and he hands him a device and tells him to push the first button in 5 minutes. It'll blow the lights, and then push the second button in 15 minutes. And that blows up everything else. Everything else. Okay.
Now, how did they get in the first time to plant all the explosives?
He plants it as he's going. Remember, we see him put the C4 on the wall by the elevators here coming up.
Gotcha.
My question was, 15 minutes? That's not a lot of time to give yourself to get in and get the kid and get out, but whatever.
But he's the Punisher.
So Lieutenant Berkowitz says to the guy holding him captive that he has to pee. And I'm going to say, apparently the guy holding him doesn't watch enough movies or TV.
Well, there's more than one guy holding him.
No, he's
right?
with one guy,
It's
and
one
he
guy.
says,
It's the guy
I
playing
have to
solitaire.
pee. No, he says, you need to take me out of these handcuffs. And the guy takes him over to the door, and he goes, are you going to hold it for me? Basically. Or are you going to uncuff me? And the guy's like, fine, I'll uncuff you.
See, if they would have had the evil doctor in the high heels, he'd have probably held it for him.
Well, my question when I see shit like this in a movie is, dudes always have to say, first of all, they're cuffed in front and they hold their hands up and they say, you're going to hold it for me? Otherwise, you need to uncuff me. Women don't have that problem, because if we're cuffed in the front, we can pretty much handle our business. We don't need to have anybody hold it for us.
So if a guy's cuffed in the front, there shouldn't be an issue either.
Just saying, it seems weird to me that it's always men going, uncuff me because I can't pee. I don't know. It's weird. You don't see women doing that.
I think maybe it's just hard to act if your hands are behind your back.
It's more sensible to keep prisoners cuffed behind their back as well. Like, don't cuff them in the front because they can slap you or punch you or whatever.
Right.
Which is what he does. He punches the guy in the face.
Not only that guy, but there's, for some reason, another Goomba comes in delivering a pizza. It's like, okay, so he kills this guy, messes him up, and then eats part of the pizza.
I know, he grabbed pizzas, he's going out the door. Well, he's been hungry, he's been tied up all day. So back in the building, Frank and Franco are in an air vent heading up to the top floor, and there's a bank of elevators, and there's one dude standing there guarding them with a gun. It makes me laugh so much that they couldn't just put a gun through the vent, because they could see the guy standing there, and sniper him, like take him out with one shot. Instead, they go, ka, ka, or whatever, and to make a noise. So the guy
Over here,
look up here, comes over to the vent, and then Frank kicks him and kicks the vent and knocks the guy out against the wall. And then he puts the C4 on the wall. And then as they're going down the hall, they turn around and the dude is back up and they shoot him anyway. Why did you just shoot him through the vent in the first place? It seems crazy to me.
He was trying to save a bullet.
I guess their bullet budget wasn't as loose as the knife budget. So they end up down the hall and into a room full of Lady Tanaka's ninjas in training, where they completely slaughter the entire room full. It's impressive, actually.
Yeah, the samurai scene goes on for a little bit, and somewhere Quentin Tarantino is quietly weeping.
He might have been inspired by that.
Yeah, if you've seen Kill Bill, you'll understand that reference.
Someday. It's on my list. So the lights go out because The 5-minute explosion happens. Frank and Franco split up. Frank fights 2 bad guys. And it's so weird to me because after Googling and reading all those notes about the karate and wanting Lundgren and doing the non-choreographed fighting to get authentic karate fighting, in this scene, Frank dispatches 2 ninjas that attack him and he does 0 karate. They attack him with their ninja moves. He does standard bar fight moves, which I was a little bit let down by that.
Well, that makes more sense for the Punisher.
True. So Informant Buddy blows the 15-minute charge, and it only does the one explosion at the elevators that Frank set. We saw him set the C4. Everything else blowing up is one set of elevators. Huh? That didn't track to me. I was like, what?
After that, they show Shake emerging from underground. And you know he was in the sewers because he comes up through a manhole cover that just has sewer written on it in giant letters, in case he didn't know where he was.
The odor should give it away. So the lieutenant and the cops show up at the building outside. He realizes Frank is in there because he bumps into Shake after he's climbed out of the sewer, and he drops one of the skull head knives on the ground, and the lieutenant picks it up.
Knife budget.
Meanwhile, Franco inside finds his son Tommy being held by Lady Tanaka. Ooh. Frank gets into fisticuffs with Lady Tanaka's grown-ass daughter, who we find out earlier in the film. We haven't talked about her yet because she's an uninteresting character. She's a little white girl who doesn't speak. She's mute, and Lady Tanaka adopted her and raised her to be this badass ninja who also plays classical piano.
She bought her at the white slave auction.
It's such a bizarre thing to have in here. And I was like, is that in the comics somewhere? But I'm guessing the Yakuza is not a Punisher storyline.
Actually, yes, he does go after Yakuza at one point or another.
But is it run by a lady with an adopted white daughter who doesn't speak?
He goes after every organized crime family type.
All right. So Frank, like I said, gets into fisticuffs with the daughter, and he quickly dispatches of her by snapping her neck. I loved that so much.
Yeah, I would point out she has a particular move with her giant earrings that she uses as like throwing knives. You get to see her throw them at
Stabs
Frank.
him like.
Yeah, she uses them, and then he grabs her by the neck and pushes her up against the wall, and they're back on her head.
Maybe they're boomerangs. She is in Australia.
Oh, good point.
So we cut back to Franco and Lady Tanaka, where she's got a knife to little Tommy's neck. Franco puts his gun in his mouth because she tells him to do it and to kill himself. Frank busts in through the glass wall and throws a knife, hitting Lady Tanaka right in her forehead. What is that?
Right. He spends 85 minutes of this movie going through people, and then you get to the big boss and you're expecting some kind of giant fight. It's over in 2 seconds.
And impressive on his part. He must have great eyesight and great aim, because he's falling out of jumping through that window and chucks the knife as he's falling to the ground, and it's smack in the middle of her forehead.
Well, that's part of knife budget is training.
So Franco gets ready to shoot Frank, but he gets interrupted by little Tommy. Frank and Franco now start to fight and tussle over the gun. Franco gets shot and he dies.
He's not only shot, he's shot for the 3rd time in this movie. The first
he must
2
always
times
have that vest on.
The first 2 times he takes it in the vest and immediately pops back up. And anyone who's ever seen that in real life, you don't really readily get up. But yeah, Frank manages to put the gun under his vest and shoot him.
Yes, I was going to say he pops up the other 2 times, no problem, for the same reason you said earlier. It's because movie. So Franco does get shot, like you said, under the vest. He dies. Lil Tommy picks up the gun and threatens Frank with the gun. And actually, this scene gets pretty. This whole movie has weird little dark, tense things. This was one of them. Frank leans into the gun on his forehead and tells Tommy, "Go ahead, shoot me." And it's this tense little dramatic moment. Tommy's crying and he's holding the gun and he's shaking, and Frank is like, "Do it." And I was just like, oh my God, this poor child's going to need so much therapy. He's almost sold into a slave trade.
Yeah, well, shocker though, he doesn't do it. So he probably has a career as a ninja because he couldn't shoot Frank either.
So Frank tells him, "You're a good boy, Tommy. Grow up to be a good man, because if not, I'll be waiting." Okay.
That seems fair.
So the lieutenant finds Tommy and follows a little blood trail outside to the top of the building, and Frank is already gone. Wah wah. And I had like Sleeping with the Enemy flashbacks here, because he goes to the edge of the building and he's all, "Frank, Frank," and I'm like, "Laura," in my head as he's yelling. It's so bad. I love Lou Gossett, but that was just bad. We cut back to the underground tunnel where we get more voiceover of Frank, and they use the same shot as the beginning of the film, with him sitting there in his underground lair, naked, with all the candles.
He's meditating.
It seems wildly dangerous to have that small area with rugs and clothes and curtains and all those candles. I mean, you know, he doesn't take the time to blow them all out every time he leaves.
Well, he lives in a sewer. What has he really got to lose there?
So we get voiceover again with the same shot saying, "I still talk to God sometimes. I ask him if what I'm doing is right or wrong. I'm still waiting for an answer. And until I get one, I'll be out here waiting, watching. The guilty will be punished." And it ends on that same tushy scene, which I'm not going to complain about.
A perfect setup for a sequel that will never happen.
Fade to black, the end. Did we touch on every character, scene, anything in the movie that you wanted to touch on?
Yeah, that was pretty much it.
All right, so then we're going to cut to the last part of the show here, where I like to ask 3 questions if you're up for it.
Okay.
Question number 1, which iteration is your favorite for TV and film? I realize that you have only seen the Punisher cameo on Daredevil on Netflix. You haven't watched the actual Punisher series, but you do know who plays him, and you've seen a little.
I watched the first season
right?
of the Punisher.
Okay. So which iteration is your favorite? That one, this one with Dolph Lundgren, the Punisher 04, or Punisher Warzone?
I like John Bernthal a lot as a Punisher, and as a long form, that's really good. But yeah, I like Ray Stevenson's Punisher Warzone.
You like the way he plays the Punisher, as well as the story and how they do it.
It is the most true to the comic book stories.
Okay. How many seasons did they do on Netflix? Do you know?
I think just 2, but I haven't
Just
seen
2?
the second one.
All right. So question 2, do you think that we need, you kind of already answered this, a better movie version more true to the comics? Do you feel like the Punisher has been done to death, or could he use a revitalization?
He could, but he needs to be in the greater Marvel universe. He did appear briefly in the Sam Raimi Spider-Man. As Peter Parker's walking down the street, you can see him walking behind him, and it is Thomas Jane, and he turns around and looks at him. So he looks directly into the camera.
Shut up.
Yeah, a lot of people missed it, but
Me too. I missed it.
yeah, I'm looking for that stuff.
If you were to do it now, then this is like question 2A. What would you do to tie it in now with the current Marvelverse that they have going on? How would you work that in? Would you give him a solo movie or bring him into another property? Like, what would you do?
I think it would definitely have to be tied in with Spider-Man or Daredevil, or more of the ground level heroes, as opposed to the big space opera that they're going for with the Avengers and Guardians of the Galaxy and Captain Marvel, because he just doesn't really fit in with those types.
Right. I'm not feeling like we're going to get another Spider-Man movie, though. They've done, what, 3 now with the new kid, or 2?
3.
So you feel like maybe they would have to throw him in a Spider-Man movie. Okay.
Well, as everything, they'll do a reboot at some point.
All right. And question 3, why didn't Frank Castle have a dog? This movie would have been exponentially better with a dog. He could have named him Skull.
I think he didn't have a dog because the dog would probably be shot in the first scene.
Oh,
And nobody wants that.
How dare you? How dare you kill my imaginary dog in this movie? I think the movie would have been better with a dog. Aren't all movies better with a dog?
A dog with a bulletproof vest on?
Yes! And he could ride on the back of the motorcycle instead of little drunk buddy.
Maybe you'll have to hold out until they get the Punisher mobile for the dog to ride in.
Oh, with the sidecar basket for the dog. Yes, name him Skull. All right, well, that is all I have for you today, sir. Thank you for wanting to talk Punisher with me.
Thanks for having me, and it was a lot of fun.
For anyone interested in viewing The Punisher, Currently, at the time of this recording, it is available on Amazon Prime, Disney Plus, Apple TV, and a few other streaming services. So take a look for it there. I want to thank everyone for listening. Goodbye. Hey listeners, Movie Miss here. Listen, I know you have a lot of options when it comes to podcasts, so thank you for listening to the show. I know everybody says this, but for a fledgling little show like ours that's just hanging on, we just finished season 4, we're rolling into season 5, it would really help us if you could subscribe, rate, and review the show on Spotify, Apple, YouTube, Good Pods. We're also on Pandora, Audible, Amazon Music. It would really help us grow the show and reach more people if you could subscribe and then rate and review, which is really the key part of it. Make sure to be part of our bad movie conversation by following us on social media. Interact with me on social media. I'm on Instagram at Movie Miss, which is movie_miss. The show is on Instagram at Let's Talk Turkeys. Also on Blue Sky at Let's Talk Turkeys and Facebook. We're on X. I'm honestly not sure how much longer I'm going to have the show on there, but currently the handle is at Gobble Podcast. Get it? Gobble, 'cause like a turkey. You can also chat with like-minded bad movie lovers in our Facebook discussion group. And like I mentioned, we're rolling into season 5. It is 2025. The show, it's been a wild ride, still going strong. So if you have a movie that you would like to hear covered on the show, let me know by emailing direct at letstalkturkeys, all one word, at yahoo.com. Also, hit me up on socials if you want to be a guest on the show. Always looking for guests. I can assign you a movie, something we think is fun, or you can bring a movie that you think is a bad movie if it has a low Rotten Tomatoes score, or you just really don't like the movie but you like to talk about it. That's half the fun, I think. Again, this goes without saying, but I'm going to say it. Without you, the show wouldn't still be kicking around. So thank you so much for hanging in there with us.
I'll be back.
Get the fuck out of here! Now I cannot.
Get the fuck out of here. Get the fuck out of here. Why don't you get the fuck out of here? Well, get the fuck out of here. Get the fuck out of here. Get the fuck out of here. Get the fuck out of here.
You're still here? It's over. Go home. Go.